Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I hope you can all see me and hear me. Thank you very much for joining in. We really appreciate you taking your time out once again to join us here at TTN. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's the beginning of a new session. I know that everybody is busy. Everybody is trying to get things done. And we won't take much of your time this morning. We are just going to jump straight in to our presentation this morning on the principles of an effective learning. How many people were at the training last Saturday? You were? You just indicate? Okay. So basically all we're doing today is wrapping up this topic. We'll just have an in-depth discussion and we'll just run through what an effective lesson looks like for both primary and secondary schools if we have enough time. Before we jump in, let me quickly just ask you a question. We're all getting ready for school for the new session. And I know that, as teachers, we have a lot of superpowers, but what is the one superpower that you wish that you had to deal with this incoming session, this coming term? The one superpower you think will make you the most effective teacher going into this term? For me, I think that like the superpower will be the power of being not sleeplessness, basically, to be able to function with no sleep so that I can get everything done that I need to do. Does anybody wants to share any superpower they think they will wish to have for the upcoming session? Knowing the mind of you, being able to read the minds, mind reading. That's a good one. Yes, anybody else? Would anybody else like to share? You can unmute yourself if you'd like to speak, or you can type in the chat box a single superpower that you would like to have to make your term better. Okay. All right. It seems like nobody wants to have any superpower. Well, constant lessons review, being an octopus with my hands. Okay, making the lessons more centered. I like that one, being Octoman or Octowoman, having many hands to get things done. Someone said mind reading. Mind reading of parents, students, and my leaders. Anybody else? Okay, great. Thank you. So today, very quickly, I'm going to introduce our speaker for today. His name is, someone said being invisible. Sorry to go back. I'm really interested. Why would you want to be invisible? If you could elaborate. I'll be watching out for your answer in the chat box. I would like to introduce Mr. Abayomi Okunuga today, who has graciously accepted to, just take us through the principles of an effective lesson one more time. Mr. Okunuga, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. Do you know what? I don't want to waste a lot of time. Mr. Okunuga is a very experienced teacher in the senior school, and we call him our prof. Thank you, Mr. So I'm going to just hand over to you because I don't want to waste a lot of time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Tommy. Thank you so much. My name is Mr. Okunuga Bayomi. I teach math. Yes, I teach math. I practically enjoy math. Let me use that word. I live in math. I go in math. Everything I do is math. So for math teachers in the house, I think would relate well. And for English teachers in the house, would relate well because I can't do what I'm doing now if I don't understand, if I cannot communicate with you. So English teachers, for geography teachers, for all subjects basically would relate well. So in a few minutes, I'll be running through the principles of an effective lesson. And it's fantastic that you've done this before. If you can hear me clearly, can you just put thumbs up or just put thumbs up if you can hear me clearly, so I know you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you so much. If you can hear me loud and clear, just put thumbs up so I know you can hear me loud and clear. Okay, I think that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much. Okay, principles of an effective lesson. And we are teachers, we are professionals in our own way, and then we've done quite a number of lessons. Now, I'll be going a little bit into what the principles are. Now, this is basically from my own experience and from studies, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. My own experience and studies, that's what I'm doing today. So let's start off with the objective practically we have today. Now, the 4 things we want to achieve at the end of today would be, how do you plan your lesson? Number 2, which I think is the most important one for me, is the starter of your lesson, how to improve on the starter of your lesson. Then number 3, teachers' feedback. How do you give feedback to your students? And number 4, how to create that creative ability in your students. I know when Ms. Tommy was mentioning earlier, she talked about what are the superpowers you want to be. I wouldn't mind reading because I'm trying to imagine, I know what you're thinking about, and because I know what you're thinking about, I can actually give you a solution instantly. And so that is what called the creative ability in students. So they can actually apply whatever I've taught them into the real realm. So let's go on to today's plan. So we have something called, the beginning is called lesson, elements of a lesson. Now, if I may ask, what are the elements of a lesson? Most people you say we have the ones before, we have the ones after, we have the ones inside the lesson. So I would say the lesson is divided into 3 basically. So the first one is what you call the pre-lesson. Now, the pre-lesson are the things you do before the lesson starts, which is as important as the lesson itself. So the first one more time is called the pre-lesson. It's as important, let me say it one more time, it's as important as the lesson itself. So it involves the planning, it involves the preparation. What are the things we put in place to ensure that, oh, these are the things I would achieve after my lesson. So that's what you call the pre-lesson. So the next one is called the actual lesson itself. When you get into the classroom, what are the things you would do? That's what you call the actual lesson. Now, we're going to be demonstrating each of these things. So we have the pre-lesson, the things you do before the lesson. It involves the lesson planning, the way you gather your resources, and all the things you put together to plan for the lesson. Then we have the actual lesson where you're there physically. Then we have something called the post-lesson. Now, the post lesson is a bit that most people do not do for the post lesson. Now, this involves your reflection. You're going back to say, oh, what are the things that did not work in my lesson? The post lesson involves what are the things that I can improve on? The post lesson involves what are the things you actually pause and you tell yourself, I need to assess myself, self-assessment, and say, oh, I can improve on this. I can do this better. For every post lesson you have, I can assure you that your next lesson will be better than the previous one. For every post lesson you have. So if you can have a post lesson, I think your next lesson will be better than the previous one. So let's start off with lesson plan. You've written lesson plan, will I say hundreds of times before or tens of times before you've written lesson plan. And we all know what are the things you have in lesson plan. So I would start off with, let me start off with, what do you actually even use this lesson plan thing? What do you actually use it for? I have observed classes before, and when I picked up a teacher's lesson plan, I cannot use the lesson. It's only the teacher that can use the plan. That is actually wrong. A lesson plan definitely is a guide. So it's a guide for the teacher to facilitate the lesson. That's what the lesson plan is. A lesson plan is also a guide for the third party. So if I walk into your class, for example, I should be able to use your lesson plan as a third party. I should be able to use the lesson plan as a third party. So if I walk into Mr. Detutu's class, for example, I walk into, let me see, Mr. Olukayode's class, for example, Mr. Odujomi's class, for example, I should be able to say, oh, I can use your lesson plan to teach the way you would teach if you were not in class. That is what the lesson plan is for. So the lesson plan would guide you as a teacher. It would help, it's like an instruction, let me call it a roadmap for your lesson. So it's clear what each child will be doing. So the lesson plan is not something you alone can use. Let's change that mindset. So the lesson plan is something a third party can pick up and also use. So let's take that one more time. A lesson plan is something that you can use as a teacher. The third party can also use it as a teacher. So that is what the lesson plan is for. Now, briefly, before I just wrap up the lesson plan, what are the things that you should have in your lesson plan? I would say there is something called the Bloom taxonomy. So if you're writing the lesson plan, the first thing I think you should put in your lesson plan is what are the hierarchy of things you want to teach in your classroom. Now, let me take for example now we have Mr. Abbas, for example. Mr. Abbas wants to teach a class and he says, I want to teach equations. And your first objective is define equation. Your second objective is list equations. Your third, list the different types of equations we have. Your third objective is explain equations. Everything he just did is under one category. Let me show you this. Look at what you have on the board, everybody. So if you see what you have here, the first thing you have here is remember. So everything I said earlier, define, lists, they are all under the same level. Your child, your students in class cannot think out of the box. So it's high time we started going beyond the regular objectives we have of remember, you list, you define, you explain. They are just normal things a student can do themselves. So if you are setting up a lesson plan, your objective should have remember things. Your objective should have apply things. Your objective have analyze the instruction. Your objective to have ability to create things. So if I gave an example earlier about equation. So if I'm given equations, for example, I can say, oh, my students should be able to identify equations. That's the first objective. Number two objective, which is also an example, is my students should be able to calculate using equations. That's the second objective. I have gone from remember now to analyze and apply. Number three objectives should now, my students should be able to apply or create equations themselves. So if you observe the hierarchy of what I just said, I have gone from remember to apply and to create. That is what you call an effective lesson. So if all you do in your lesson plan is just, you can define, you can explain, you can list, they are all on the same level. So it's important we take note of that concept. It's actually very important we take note of that concept. So I'm going to kick off with the part I call the most interesting part. I call it the 4 minutes of every lesson. So if I walk into your class, and I see the first 4 minutes, let me call it, you have Sheon on the line, for example, and we have Jude, for example, and I walk into your class, and in the next 4 minutes, your class is not engaging. You have lost me in that class. If I walk into your class, for example, and for the next 2 minutes, I can't catch something in your class, you have lost me in that class. Now, why do you think Will Rogers said something very important? Look at what he said. You can never get a second chance to make a good first impression. So when you walk into a classroom, you can never get a second chance to make that first impression, which we as professionals, we call the starter. Your starter in every class is important. So when I walk into a class, what are the starters I'm going to use? I'm going to give you some demonstrative starters shortly. So look at the first starter. Now, looking at what we have on the board, we can see, I think, what will you call the man? What will you call that man? Can someone type in the chat room? What is that man doing? The boy, is it a boy? Just what do you think is happening from what you can see on the board? Just type in the chat room quickly. What are the things you observe from what you can see on the board? What are the things you observe? Yes, quickly, let's go. What are the things you observe from what you have in the chat room? Okay, someone is reading, fantastic. We have reading. Okay, the boy is exercising, fantastic. Okay, Mr. Shoyemi said reading. We have Tommy said the boy is exercising. We have Samuel saying demonstrating. We have Adenike say exercising, fantastic. I think we have two exercising now, Okay, we have someone say the man is thinking, fantastic. We have listening, fantastic. Tommy also said thinking. We have Oladimeji said listening, beautiful, beautiful. Now, exercising. I've seen exercise about 3 times now. Mr. Kimi said exercising. Now, everybody listen carefully to this. Listen. For every starter you do, your starter is called a warm-up. Your starter, one more time, is called a warm-up. So if you see professional footballers, before they jump onto the field, before they go onto the field, there's something they call the warm-up for like few minutes. Maybe like few minutes. So every starter in your class, when you walk into a class, you must have a warm-up exercise. So what are the benefits of these warm-up exercises for professionals in the house? The first thing you want to do is you want to activate your students' mindsets. Have you been to a class before? Maybe you have 100 students in your class and your students are distracted. So what the starter does it kicks them. So you have something called a Kickstarter in the class, for example. So the starter would activate your student mindset. Number two, the starter would increase your students' attention. So if your child or your students have been distracted before that class, the moment you start off with an interesting starter, a warm-up exercise, it changes the attention. It changes the attention from the distraction to the current class. That is what the starter does. Now, the first thing I have here is what called the warm-up exercise. So warm-up activities. Now, something the starter does also, it makes the class more interesting. That's what the starter does. So we have the warm-up activities and it makes the class more interesting. Now, let me put up another thing again about the advantages of the starter. Your starter should be interesting and engaging. So if I have a starter, for example, and my starter is not engaging everybody in the class, I have lost the students. So if I have warm-up activities now, my starter should be interesting, my starter should be engaging, my starter should be short. The next one, the starter should be short. A maximum, your starter, a maximum of 3 minutes. If you can do 2 minutes or 1 minute, that's fantastic. So if you come into a class, what are the warm-up exercises you have as professionals? So you don't come to a class and say, oh, the topic of the day is called quadratic equation. No, 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 no. So you come into a class, what are they call it icebreakers. What are the starters? Professionally, we call it starters. We call it warm-up activities. All right, it should be warm-up activities, it should be interesting, it should be engaging, and it should be short. Now, the next thing is it should not be confusing. So if you have a warm-up activity that everybody in class do not understand, there is a problem. If you have a warm-up activity that everybody in class, you're coming to a class and you're asking them a question and everybody in class do not understand, there is a problem. Your starter should be short. I told you a maximum of 3 minutes, maximum of 3 minutes. You can have 2 minutes or few seconds starter, that's fine. Then lastly, we have your starter should always not be related to your lesson. There's a misconception about what starters are. People will say, oh, your starter should link into your lesson. You can have something totally different from the regular, totally different from the norm. You can have that. It's fine as a starter. So let us start with a short starter now. Everybody, are you ready? Are you ready? So we have this. We have this on the board. Make as many words as you can. If you have, you can just type as fast as you can. Make as many words as you can from the word mathematics. This is a starter. I can use it in my class. Let's go. Make any word, as many as you can. So I'm giving it in class. Okay, I have the first answer, fantastic. I have them, beautiful. I have them, I have math, beautiful. I have math, beautiful. Shoyem said math. Tomi said math. Okay, I have meat, beautiful. Akimi said math, D, them, yes. Ogbeni said art, yes. I like can, has, art, beautiful. Eat. Okay, Chika said eat, fantastic. Titilayo said eat. Okay, beautiful. Okay, can we have the longest word? Let's make it a little bit more challenging now. Can you have I have theme. Bukola said theme. Okay, I have theme. I have Omotola said team. I have meat. Fantastic. Can we have the longest word? Who can form the longest word? The maximum I've seen so far is 5. Tommy said steam. That's 5. Can we have more than 5 words? Who can try that? Beautiful. Tommy said we have English teachers in the house. So hi. I'm sure you're an English teacher. Okay. Thematic. Okay, thematic. Okay. We have the longest. Okay, someone formed themes, math, sat, themes. Hi, we have masters. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Now, this is a starter I just did. And in less than 30 seconds, I'm done. This is an example of a starter you can use in your class. You can use any word. Let's assume you're teaching biology. You can use biology. Look at another one. Entertainment. So form words with entertainment. You can do this in 30 seconds and the students are there. Oh, what am I going to say? Okay, entertain. We have entertain. Beautifully. I think we even have things coming in now. We have 10, we have so you can form different words with these. So this is an example. Just write this down. Make the first thing is what? Make as many words as you can. You can use it in your class. So this is the first one. This is the first one. This is something I practically use regularly in class. We have photosynthesis. Just make as many words as possible with this. Okay, so that is the first starter. Okay, we are done with the first one. We still have more coming in. Thank you so much. We have ranks. Beautiful. We have many things coming in. Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to another type of starter we can use. Are you ready? Next one, number 2. Look at what you have on the board, everybody. This is also another starter you can use in your classroom. You are trying to engage your students, change their attention from whatever they're thinking about to the lesson. So there are 6 hidden words. There are 6 hidden words here. Look closely. Can you write the hidden words out? Can you type them out in the chat room? There are 6 of them, just 6 of them. Let's see who can get it. There are 6 hidden words here. Check it properly. There are 6 words hidden. Who can find the words? Beautiful, beautiful. Mr. Shoyami said garden. Beautiful. We have garden. Can I annotate? Can you give me permission to annotate so I can write it there? Garden. There's garden. There's garden. There's garden. It's just no. You have to pick a word. The word is written there. You can pick an apple, for example. You can pick wheelbarrow. Yeah, garden. And Patricia said garden. You can pick wheelbarrow. I'm talking about a word is written there. Vine. Beautiful. Oluwashina said vine. Beautiful. Vine. Oluwashina said vine. Beautiful. We have 4 more. We have 4 more. Oluwashina said, no, farming is not, okay, farming is not there, but there's something very close to farming. Flower is not there. There's farm, yes. Basol said farm, beautiful, there's farm. Jemai also said farm. The word is written in here. The word is written there. It must be a word. Bloom, beautiful, there's bloom. Hi, somebody has listed it. So who is the mastermind group? Who is the mastermind group? The person has listed everything out. Okay. Garden. I wish I can annotate so I can just show you here. Okay, let me annotate so I can show you here. So we have garden. Okay, we have garden. We have vine. We have dig, D-I-G. We have seed. We have seed. I think master group have said it all. We have seed. Then we have farm. So I'm going to do something now so everybody can see what I mean. Now, let me share this one more time. I'm going to go back. I'm going back to show you something. So I want everybody to see this. It's something very important you can use in your classroom. So can you see my screen now, everybody? So look at this. This is the first one, garden. So this is garden. So let me do something. I want everybody to be able to see this so you can use it well in classroom. You can use it also in classroom well as much as you can. So looking at what I have on the board, this is garden. Have you seen garden? That's garden. G-A-R-D-E. You can use this in your classroom. Look at bloom. This is bloom. B-L-O-O-M. This is dig. D-I-G. Have you seen D-I-G? This is vine. So this is the beginning of your class and everybody is focused. Oh, what is the next thing? What is the next thing? So these are examples of things you can use. You practically don't need to even have a Huawei board. You can just print. Let's assume you have 100 students in your class because we have people here that they have like 100 students in their classroom. How can you apply this? Let me give you. You can actually print just 10 copies and that's what you use permanently. You divide your classroom in groups of 10 and you have a leader for each table. So if you have a large class, let me tell you, I can make your class more effective because you might have, in my school, we don't have a projector. Oh, in my school, we don't have a Huawei board. So how can you do it if you don't have this in your school? Now, you can just print 10 copies. You can just print 10 copies, and that's what you're using permanently for all your classes. All right. And the next thing you do is you put it on each table. We have 10. Remember, you have 10 groups of 100. So you have 100. So each table, and they analyze this. They pick it out. So that's also something you can do. So these are other things, example you can do. All right. Use the picture to guess the topic. This is also another example of a starter you can do. Guess the topic for the day. And you can have, this is the answer, pizza. Can you form a question? And the answer will be equal to pizza. This is also another starter you can use. So the starter is very important in every lesson. Your starter is very important in every lesson. Every lesson. So other examples of starter, you can just take a picture of this for other examples of starters. You can just take a picture of this for other examples of starters. So you have, you're guessing the pictures. You have make the longest word. We talked about that earlier. A to Z ways. There are many other things you can do for examples of starters. So you can just take a screenshot of this and you have this as other examples of starters. So these are the examples of different starters you can use in your classroom. So like I said earlier, what would starter do? It would help the students focus in your classroom. And from the beginning, your class has become interesting right from the beginning of your class. So these are examples of starters you can use. Practical examples. You do not need a Huawei board. You do not need a projector. You do not need all of these these things. It's available in your school. If it's available in your school, fantastic. If it's not available in your school, you can do without it. So let's take note of all of this. Now, let's go to the next thing. Principles of an effective lesson. This is now, will I call it the, you're about to say the cocoa. Now, when I say principles of an effective lesson, definition will say, oh, they are fundamental guidelines and strategies that ensure that learning objectives are met. If you have your learning objective, teachers, please hear this clearly. If you have learning objective, your learning objective should not be more than maximum 3 or 4. Don't go and have 10 learning objectives. What do they want to learn if you have 10 objectives? If you want that class to be effective, your objective should be small, achievable. So don't give an objective that you cannot finish in that classroom. You want to teach biology, you're talking about photosynthesis, you're talking about define photosynthesis, apply photosynthesis, demonstrate photosynthesis, you carry out the practical on photosynthesis, the right equation of photosynthesis. They can achieve that in your classroom. So when you're planning your class to make it more effective, ensure that your objectives are short. Some of you say we need to finish the curriculum. Yes, you can finish the curriculum if you have a precise objective. So you can have them short. So the first thing I talked about was a starter should be maximum of 3 minutes. Your starters, maximum of 3 minutes. That's what I talked about before. Now, when you talk about the principles of effective lessons, the first thing is called the use of AFL. In fact, this is popular in the 21st century. And AFL means assessment for learning. Now, I'll be mentioning about different strategies you can use. I've talked about the starters. Now I'm talking about the main lesson now. What are the assessments for lesson, for learning? Number one assessment. There is something called traffic lights. A traffic light. So in your classroom, all you need is just a green paper, yellow paper, and a red paper. That is it. So if I'm teaching, for example, and you do not understand, you show me the red flag. It's called the red paper. So you don't need to talk. Immediately I see it, I know you don't understand. If you show me the green one, you understand. If you show me the yellow one, I partially understand. So it's not until I ask you, class, do you understand? It's not until I do that, everybody respond to me. Number two, I'm giving examples of assessment for learning. I hope you're writing all of this down. Number two is called something called, now let's assume you have a class and I ask a question. And I ask, let me use this question. 1 + 1. And you call, Tommy, what is the answer? Abbas, what is the answer? Let's try to avoid that. If you ask a question like that, the first thing you can do, 1 + 1, everybody in that class can give you the answer at the same time. Let me tell you how. Everybody in the class can give you the answer at the same time. There are two methods I'm going to use. If you have something called a mini whiteboard, a mini whiteboard is just like this. This is how a mini whiteboard looks like. You have a plain paper like this, and I ask you, 1 + 1, everybody, write your answer. 5, 4, 3, 2. Lift up your answers, and everybody lifts up their answer. The answer is 2. So instantly, when everybody lifts their answers up, even if it's the class of 500, if the class of, you can easily spot who is wrong. Instantly. So let's avoid 1 + 1. Shola, what is the answer? Dekunle, what is the answer? Let's avoid that. So you can instantly get answers. This is called the 21st century. You're not asking students one after the other. Everybody contributes in class and everybody's engaged. So that's it. Another one is called waiting time. I've heard teachers when they teach in a class and they say, can you define photosynthesis? And the next thing, everybody, Yomi, what is the answer? Immediately they ask the question. You should give something called wait time. When you ask a question like that, give them about 20 seconds or 10 seconds or 30 seconds to think. You can even pause and say, don't raise your answer like primary 1 students. In fact, I don't know how primary school teachers, I don't know how you guys do it. I give kudos to you guys. I don't know how you guys do it. So teaching a primary school student, you can just ask them, what is 1 + 1? Even a child that does not know the answer will raise up his hand. Now, coming to college, you're asking, for example, what is 10 + 10? You don't raise your hand. You give them about 10 seconds. No, please don't raise your hand. You have 10 seconds to think about the answer. So this is also another strategy you can use in your classroom. All right, this is also another strategy you can use in your classroom. Now, another thing you can use in your classroom is called Okay, I talked about you think before you answer. That is the method. You think before you answer. So don't just give me the answer. Ensure you think before the answer. You can also use something called brainstorming. It's also another assessment for learning. So if you ask a question, okay, let me call this quickly. You ask a question in classroom. Miriam and Oguni, can you guys come up together with the answer? So you're calling children in pairs and they're coming up with answers. You can call again, oh, Nonso and Mary, come up with the answer. So you're calling students in pairs. They call it pair assessment. You're just coming up together. Or everybody pair yourself and come up with an answer. They are thinking, they are collaborating to get an answer. You are helping their thinking skill. They're not just raising up their hand. They're trying to collaborate with one another. These are the things that would help if you want to make that class more engaging for every child. Sometimes a child might feel uncomfortable to answer questions in class. Might feel uncomfortable to answer questions in class. This is the best way. So you can just put them in groups to answer questions. So these are what called assessment for learning. We have class management. Oh, yo. If you cannot manage your class, teachers, if you cannot manage your class, you cannot teach in that class. Class management is how you engage your student productively. It must be productive engagement. Once you have a productive engagement, your students would manage that themselves. So you can come into a class for the first time and you set rules. These are the rules from the beginning of the class. These are the rules of the class. These are the things you should do. These are the things you should not do in my classroom. Yeah, some of them will flush the rules, yes, we know, but you retreat the rules. Not in every class. One person is standing up, one person is sitting down. For class management, let me give you one strategy you can use, particularly if you have a large class. I talked about this earlier, your sitting position. So if you have a conventional way of sitting, it won't help you. So sitting position can help with the class management. You can help manage your class properly. So you have the sitting position, it helps you to manage your class, and then you have groups and students sitting in groups. And when you have students sitting in groups like that, make sure you have a leader that is responsible for the group. And you're sure you know the student behavior. So you don't put students with the same behavior together. They can manage themselves. These are the things you put together to help your class management. All right, I'm going to rush through quickly. We have timely feedback. I'll spend a little bit time on feedback, a little bit, just a little bit time on feedback, a little bit time on feedback, a little bit time on feedback. Now, that feedback, when you give feedback to your students, it determines, it has a way of determining the relationship between the students and the teacher. So in college, for example, in medical school, we use something called the PIN, P-I-N. The P stands for progress, the I stands for improvements, and the N stands for the next step. So if I mark your work and all I give you is 7/10, and I give it to you, go and do the correction. You have not learned anything in that class. So if I give you a feedback, it might be, I'll give you some examples now, some feedback given to by teachers. Now, you can give a feedback to students. Write it down in the feedback. This is what you have learned. You can improve on this. The next step is to practice this. That's what you call feedback, PIN. The P stands for the progress the child has made. The I stands for improvement, and the N stands for the next step. PIN, when you're giving feedback. Now, the next one I'm going to talk about is give play expectations. We have good relationship with your students. If you want to have an effective lesson, have a relationship with your students, particularly if you're teaching teenagers. You need to have this rapport with your students. All right, fantastic one. Progress, improvement, and next steps. Fantastic one. Thank you so much, Ms. Tommy. So we have built a good relationship with your students. Student engagement is important. You're engaging your students. I talked about different ways you can engage your students. We have provide achievable objectives. I told you about, you can't give 10 objectives in the classroom. You can achieve 10 objectives in the classroom. It's practically impossible. All right, you can use different teaching methods. So we have different types of learners. Use the different method. Use the kinesthetic. Consider the kinesthetic learners. Consider the virtual learners. Consider the auditory learners. Consider all three. So if anyone doesn't work, you're switching to the next one. You're ensuring that you accommodate everybody in your class. You accommodate everybody in your class. All right. So I've talked about feedback, and Ms. Tommy gave up the answer I was going to ask everybody. So we have something called PIN. Can Can everybody just type the meaning of pin in the chat room? I think Mr. Tommy has pin. Let's see. Someone has typed it already. So let's see. Just type the meaning of pin. We have something pin. Let me see who remembers from what I just said in a few seconds. The meaning of pin. P-I-N. So when you mark, this is what you should follow. P-I-N. P-I-N. Anybody? Mr. Tommy has given me an answer. Thank you so much. P-I-N. The meaning of P-I-N. Mr. Samuel Oguniyi has given me the answer. Progress, fantastic. Progress, improvement. We have another answer. Mr. Lua Shola, Ms. Peace. We have Basol. We have, okay, fantastic. We have, okay, we have Aqualam Nursery Primary School. Fantastic. So now let me give you an example. A student gets 9 out of 10. And I write this. You have done excellently well by expanding brackets. You have done excellently well by expanding brackets. Always remember to apply all values in the brackets, to multiply all values in the brackets. That is what they need to improve on. Then the next thing is, now you can attempt expansion of 2 brackets. Please, you can write all questions down. Write all your questions down. We'll take questions afterwards. Write all your questions down. We'll attend to all questions afterwards. So this is an example of a feedback given to a student. Now, let's see the next one. This is also another feedback. This is also another feedback. Look at what we have here. Let me just read it. I don't know if you can see this. I am glad. Now, this is a 2-way feedback. The teacher gave the feedback in blue. The student responded to the feedback. So teacher gave the feedback and the student responded to the feedback. That is what we have on the board. Teacher gave a feedback, the student responded to the feedback. Now, we have, with support, you are able to continue and write numbers. Now, the student is saying, I am glad I can do better. I am glad and I can do better next time. This is a response from a student. Absolutely fantastic. Look at another one. The teacher gave the feedback. Good work. Good work. That is fantastic. That's what the teacher gave back and gave his feedback. And the student is responding to the feedback. Thank you, Mr. A. I think he calls him Mr. A. I will do better next time. The student is responding. Now, this is also another feedback. Very good attempt. You are able to find bearing with values less than 270. Now, that's the first one. That's the progress. Then the next thing is, ensure you remember to subtract from 180. That is what you call what you need to improve on. And the last one is, the next thing is you can now do compass bearing. So you can see examples of feedback. You can see examples of different feedback. I have more examples here. This is an English feedback, for example, an English lesson. You have another feedback. This is also another feedback from an English lesson. This is also another feedback from a math lesson. So you can give a 2-way feedback. Feedback is meant to be 2-way, not just 1 way, 2 ways. So you don't give the feedback, let the student respond to your feedback. So the first few seconds in your class, please respond to the feedback and you mark the notes. All right. So this is feedback and respond to the feedback and you mark the notes. So we have just 2 more things to do and we are done with the college part. Okay. The components of effective lesson, we've talked about the lesson plan, we talked about the starters, we talked about the feedback of the lesson. There's something called objectives. Now in objectives, these days in the 21st century, Dr. Wani taught us something very absolutely apt and fantastic about the different objectives we have. We have something called the learning objective, we have the knowledge objective, we have the skill objective. Now, this is something that is a training for another day. Is a training for another day. Now, for all of these objectives, because I'm an engineer and also engineer converted to a teacher, so I can give a math topic, and from the math topic, I can relate it to engineering. So if I give you bearing, for example, I can tell you, oh, do you know the application of bearing? So I can relate math to real life. So these are the applications. So for every topic, sometimes students would ask you, what do we even need these things for? It's always important and advisable if you can relate your topic to real life. So it's not abstract. So, oh, this is what you applied for. This is where you can use it. This is engineering. That's why there's something called outdoor learning. There's excursion. You expose your students to different things because the real world there, we're not talking about 1, 2, 3. It's the application of the content they'll be doing in the real world. So let's start up with this, and that's what we call the objective. We have the pair also. We have something called the assessment. We have the assessments. We have the student activities. So your assessment is important. We have the summative and the formative assessment. How do you engage your students? In my own style of learning, but style of teaching, My students' output determines my performance. So if my students don't do so well, I question my ability that, oh, have I missed something? Have I missed this? I should be able to predict what my students will get. I should be able to predict, oh, these are my students' ability. If they do homework, for example, and they come up with different answers that is beyond their ability, I can tell them, oh, this homework, you didn't do this homework yourself. I can confidently tell them, you didn't do this homework yourself. This homework, you did it, because I know their ability, I know my students' ability, so I can easily say that to them. So these are the different interactive activities you can do in your classroom. This is a lot. This is a lot. This is a lot. We have group discussions. You have group discussion in your classroom. Peer teaching, I explained peer teaching, for example. You can just call up some students, additional, for example, and Kende, for example, and Olubukola, for example, and we have someone called Techno, and we have Titilayo, for example, Abbas, for example, put them in the group and say, oh, can you talk about this topic? Students love it when they are facilitating a class. Students love when they're facilitating a class. Now, we taught a class once in a topic called mensuration shapes, mensuration in math. And I told the students, can you come up with a role play? And student came up with a jingle adverts, and they used all the different formulae in mathematics. Very brilliant. I think I'm going to be recording these things now. Very brilliant. They came up with poems in classrooms. They came up with songs. Students, I did not think about it. You can have debates in your classroom. Give debates in your classroom. English teachers, geography teachers, economics teachers. Give debates in your classroom. You can give seminars. You can even call an outside teachers from maybe teachers from another department to come into your classroom. Spice up your classroom. Let's be more professional in this job. Be more professional. So spice up your classroom. So you can take your screenshot. I think you'll be given the slides. So spice up your classroom with different activities. So these are loads of activities you can use in your classroom. I can bring an object to the classroom, for example, and tell the student, can you describe this object? And from there, their thinking, their critical reasoning is improving. The world is going beyond 1 + 1, 2 + 2. It's going beyond all of that now. It's more of critical reasoning, So these are the different applications we can use. Debates, experiments. Thank God for the science teachers here. Experiment, demonstration, storytelling. You can use all of these, not in primary school alone. College teachers, you can use all of these in your classroom. Yes, some of you will say, I have an exam to prepare for. Even preparing for that exam, you're not preparing the student to just pass the exam. You're preparing the student for the future also. So we must put that into consideration. Now, I think, lastly, what are the methods to improve the engagement? There's a last thing I'm going to talk about here is, one, we have differentiation, we have pair teaching, we have mentoring, and we have scaffolding. Differentiation, you're giving tasks to students, not just say number 1 to 10, number 10 to 20. That's not differentiation. You are intentional about it. Oh, this student, this is your ability. You can give them the same question, and the format or the questioning will be different. We have peer assessment, which I've talked about many times. We have mentoring. Now, most students don't aspire to become teachers. It's unfortunate that it could be as a result of our mentorship. It could be as a result of our mentorship. I've heard students say, oh, Mr. Kunuga, I actually want to become a teacher like you. They call me professor. I want to become a prof, like I want to calculate like you. When you talk in class, they want to talk like you. You say, oh, I just want to talk as fast as you can. You see students they're trying to impress you as a teacher. We can get to that level of teaching where you have a relationship with them. Now, scaffolding, you can sit in class and scaffold your students to get the answers also. All right. So in conclusion, I said we give time for questions. In conclusion, the first thing is plan your lesson. Use the first few minutes of your lesson judiciously. You connect with your students. You focus on your student critical reasoning. You engage your student all through productively, and you reflect on your lesson. That's what we call the post lesson. With all of this, I wish you all the best, and I'm sure your students will be able to think critically in everything they do. All right. I'm going to leave you with this short story. 2 men came to the class, and I asked one of them, what is the height of this building we are in? And the man told me, oh, I'm an architect. I know the height of all the buildings in Lagos State. And he gave me the height of the building. is 150 meters high. The second man walks in and I asked him, what is the height of the building? He said, give me a minute. He's not an architect, so he has not memorized all the height of building in Lagos State. He went outside, calculated the shadow, the length of the shadow, calculated the length of his height or his own shadow, and calculated it mathematically, and he got the exact answer, 150 meters. Who is smarter? Who used critical reasoning? Is it the first person or the second person? I leave that to you to judge. Thank you so much. I think with this, will I call with this few speech of mine or with this? I hope I've been able to tell you about the effective principles of an effective lesson, the ways you can make your lessons more engaging, the way you talk, make your classes like that. And I wish you all the best. As we teach as professionals, please put all these rules into consideration. Thank you so much. And I leave you in the hands of Mrs. Tommy. And if you have any questions, Ms. Tommy will tell you when to ask the questions. Thank you so much. Ms. Tommy, you have the floor, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okunuga. You see, I told you we call him a prof. Actually, he is a professor and he has, shown you why he is a professor. Yoruba will say, he has shown you why he's a professor. I hope that you found the session very impactful. Like I said, we don't want to keep you for long today. So we will, first of all, very quickly, if you have any questions for Professor Okunuga, I'd like you to please note them. He's taking us through, I don't know if we have any more time for him to just give us a sample, a short sample, maybe 10 minutes to show us how, he has already shown us already, really. But just if a particular topic, and show us how he will move through that particular topic. And I'll do the same thing just for 5-10 minutes for the primary section as well. And then we can now do question and answers. Is that possible, sir?
Yes, that's possible. Let me just change. Let me go to a PDF.
Okay.
Now, I think teachers have also asked me, how do people teach online? And they say, oh, how can you use the online platform? There are loads of different things you can do online for the online platform, loads of different things you can do for the online platform. For example, this is just a PDF I'm going to show you, for the lesson. I'll just do this quickly, rush through it quickly. So we have something called binary. So let me call it binary. I'm teaching an online lesson, so I'm going to write all of them from the scratch. I hope you can see my screen clearly. So we have binary. Now, everybody, one after the other, I'm going to be calling different names, all right? So could you just write what comes to your head when you hear the word binary? Anything at all. When you hear the word binary, what comes to mind? Anything. There's no wrong answer. Anything. Everybody, let's go. Just type in the chat what comes to mind when you hear the word binary. 2. Beautiful. Oh, we have mathematicians here. Okay, I'm going to change that narrative to numbers. Beautiful. Here we have numbers. We have 2 together. Okay, 2 together. Okay, we have more answers. We have 2. Okay, beautiful. Now, binary has to do with 2. And there is something called base. Now, I like the fact that everybody here mentioned 2 and everybody here mentioned numbers. So when it comes to binary, we are talking about numbers 1 and numbers 2. So this is a little bit high math, and I will see how I can make it as simple as possible. Why do you think 1, 2, 3 plus 7, 8, 9? What is the answer to this question? Everybody, can you write it on the board, please? Some people will start using calculator, some will start using phones, some will start using their fingers. This is where you know. So let's go. Okay, can you just type the answers? I don't want to just type the answers. Just type the answers. Thank you. Just type the answers rather than raise the hand. Just type the answers. Okay, absolutely fantastic. Okay, we have 819, 912, we have 812, we have all of that. Beautiful. Now, I'm going to translate binary into, this is called normal addition, which we all know. I'm going to translate this into binary. Please, everybody, pause and listen carefully. 3 plus 9 is 12. We write 2 and we take 1 here. 1 plus 2 plus 8 is 11. Write 1 and we take 1 here. Then 1 plus 1 plus 7 is 9. That's the answer. Now, this is the natural numbers. This is what we already know. In binary numbers, We only use two numbers. We can't write 3, we can't write 4, we can't write 7. We only use two numbers because it's binary, two numbers. And the two numbers, thank you for those people that got it earlier, is just 1 and 0. That's all. That's everything we use in binary. Now, this topic is so interesting. But before I tell you the application, who can tell me where you use binary? Anything you use binary for. Let's see. Let's one of us. Let's learn something. Something you use binary for. Something you use binary for. Computing. We have Mr. Tom said computing, coding, beautiful, coding. Any other one. Computing, programming, fantastic. So we can see the importance of binary coding, beautiful. Who has seen this before? Who has seen the sign before, and what does it mean? Who has seen the sign before, and what does it mean? Everybody here should have seen the sign. Everybody here should have seen the sign. Everybody here. 1 and 0. A switch button. Power button, beautiful. On and off, beautiful. Okay, beautiful. Power button, beautiful, beautiful. Now, do you observe that this is a combination of 1 and 0 put together? So binary, the application of binary. So when we're doing this in class, all right, binary is 1 and 0 because you only have two numbers. And the first application of binary is in computing. So every computer you have must have this sign. Switch on and switch off. So 0 means off and 1 means on. That is why it's called on and off. That is it. On and off. I think I spent 2 minutes, I have 3 minutes. I just want to tell you what binary is. So with this concept now, let's do additions of binary. With this concept, let's do addition of binary. I'm going to ask you questions. All right, I'm going to be asking you questions, everybody, questions. Now, 1 means 1 in binary. 2 means 1, 0 in binary. And 3 means 1, 1 in binary. So this is binary. You always put this here. Binary showing 2. Binary showing 2. All right. So I've told you what binary is. All right. Base 2 numbers. All right. You have just 2 numbers in binary, 0 and 1. All right. I've told you the application of binary. You have them in coding. You have them in programming. You have them in all your switch buttons. You have them. And so let's go to the last thing now. How do you add binaries together? Remember, 1 means 1. 2 means 0. And 3 means 1, 1. So can we go to the addition of binary? If you can get these questions, you're fantastic. Fantastic. I'm sure some English teachers will say, I might become a mathematician today. Okay. 1 plus 1 is 2. But remember, I told you 2 means 1 and 0. 2 means 1 and 0. So what do we write in binary? 1 plus 1 is 2. We put 0 and you take 1.
0 and you take 1.
The next thing, 1 plus 1 plus 0 is also 2. What do we write in binary? You put your 0 and you take your 1 here. And the last thing, what do you use in binary? 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. In binary, what is it called? It's called 1 and 1. And with these few points, we wrap up what you call addition or binary. I think I did that in less than 5 minutes. Yes, I did that in less than 5 minutes. I did that in less than 5 minutes. So if you have learned this if you're not a math teacher, don't tell me the answer. If you're a math teacher, don't tell me the answer. I want teachers that are not, I want people that are not math inclined. I want people that are not math inclined at all. I want people that are not math inclined. So let's try this question. Math teachers, don't tell me the answers. Can we try this? 1, 0, 1 plus 1, 1, 1. Math teachers, pause. Let me see who has learned binary in less than 5 minutes. Addition of binary in less than 5 minutes. So let's try this question in less than 5 minutes. In less than 5 minutes. This is something I'm sure math teachers are itchy to type the answers. So remember the application of binary? Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Wow,
it's the same with
Wait, I think it's okay. I think I typed the same question. Can I spice it up? Miss Tommy, can I have like 30 seconds for one? Can I have 30 seconds, Miss Tommy,
Of
please? Can I have
course,
30 seconds?
please go ahead.
Let me give you 30 seconds. I switched the question, so let me switch the question. But for you to even get the answer, let me switch the question, please. So we have 1, 1, 1 plus 1, 1, 1. This is tougher.
0.
Remember, because it's binary, you must put 2 there. Let's see who can get this answer. We don't want math teachers, please. We don't want math teachers. We don't want math teachers. So let's see how you can learn these concepts at that short time. Haha. We have Oladeji. We have Suyemi. We have Yemi Akin Remy. We have K. We have Titilayo. We have Al Kalam. I hope I pronounce the name. Adetutu. We have Jimo. We have Shola. We have Sheung. We have Badruddin. Absolutely fantastic. So in 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes, you have learned the concept of this topic. This is a topic that if math teachers are here, you teach binary for 1 week. Now, in 5 minutes, you have learned the concept. All you now do is make sure the students dissolve these questions, that if they see binary in their dreams, they would solve it. That is what it is. So for every class, as a teacher, your talking should be less than 10 minutes. Let the students do the remaining. They call it demonstrate. I have taught you a topic in less than 5 minutes. And so you can go to your school and do the same thing. They know the topic, they don't know the topic. Let the students think about it and bring out the answers. I hope all that answer the questions are not math teachers. I think I have to clap for you. If you're not a math person, you're an adult and you learned this topic in less than 5 minutes, I think I'll give you kudos. So the answer, let's just do the correction, please. So the answer to this question, you can do patch assessment here. A student will teach another person, a student will, for those that don't understand it, we'll give you 1 plus 1 is 0, and you take 1 here. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 1, 1. You put 1 and put 1 here. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 1, 1. And remember to always put your base 2. So you are fantastic. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I hope I've been able to teach you binary. Thank you so much. So this is how my class will look like. This is how my class would look like. Sorry, I teach you higher mathematics. So pardon me if I did not teach you fractions or 1 plus 1 or all of that. All right, this is how my classes will look. This is how my class will look like. Okay, someone has a question. So I think Miss Tommy will tell you when to ask the question. Thank you so much. Miss Tommy will tell you when to ask the question.
Okay, I think you can. Maybe we should take just your one question now. I'll quickly
Okay, that's
talk
fantastic.
about a few things for primary, and then we'll take questions for both together.
Okay, that's fantastic. That's fine.
Okay, so with just your one question, go ahead. If you want to
go ahead with your question, please.
Or write it out. Says what writing pad do you use?
I just use this is in every, that's why I didn't use what I use basically. This I just use Edge. It's in every laptop. Just type Edge. This is Edge. What you use for browsing, just type Edge. It's in every laptop. This is it, Edge. It's spelled as this. Just type it on your laptop, you get it. It's in every laptop. Edge. It's there. Every laptop has it. That's what I use for writing. That's all. That's it. That's what I'm using to teach you. That's all. It's in every laptop. But let me give you more. If you want more, you have something called the Microsoft board. You have the Microsoft board. You don't pay for that. It's also free of charge. If you're using the Zoom platform, it has its own online. All right, so you can use Edge. You can use Microsoft board. That's what I use. Then we have something called a mathematics construction. You can also use that. So I use that a lot also in classroom. So that has a little bit of construction in it. It has a little bit of construction in it. Let me see if I can put it up. That's a little bit of construction. So you can do construction quite interactive in your classroom. So if you're using the board, but if you don't have this in your school, you can just use the normal construction sets in your school. You can just use normal construction sets in your school, and that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Any other question, please? Any other question?
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
What I'm saying is this: like for further ease of scribbling while teaching online.
Okay. Okay, I do understand.
External device? Is there any external device?
Yes, please. Okay, my laptop is a touchscreen laptop. So if you're getting a laptop, most people don't actually know this. If you're getting a laptop, it's the same price as a normal laptop. Those days, it was more expensive. So you can get a laptop now. Just tell them you want a touchscreen laptop because you're a teacher, so you can actually write on it. If your laptop is not a touchscreen laptop, you can get an external device. They call it a writing pad. It's quite small. It's just like a phone. Mr. I don't have one. My laptop is touchscreen. I don't have. It's just like a phone. So you're just writing. As you're writing, it's showing on your screen. It's just like a phone, and you plug it to your laptop. That's it. So those are the two things you can use. So if your laptop is not a touchscreen laptop, you can use that. You can use that also, or you can just use. But if you're writing with your mouse, it's very difficult to write with your mouse. Do not write with your mouse. It's very difficult. So you can just use the external a touchscreen laptop, or you just use the external board. They call it a writing pad. A writing pad. Just type writing pad. I think it's about 7,000. It's about 7,000. It's about 7,000 thereabouts. Yeah, about 7,000. So you can just invest in that also. Thank you.
Sir, I would love to invest in the writing pad.
Okay, I would. I don't know if I can.
A non-touch screen laptop.
Okay then. You can just go into any of the platform and just write and just type the writing pad. You see it there.
Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very briefly, let me just share my screen. Can you all see my screen, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I'm sorry, I'm not Professor. It's a hard act coming after Professor Okunuga, isn't it? But we'll do our best. So I just want to distill down what he said to primary school. And I'm just going to walk you through, as an English teacher, how I would teach this topic in creative writing, okay? So I will be teaching creative writing year 4 for year 4, and we'll be talking about myths and legends. I know some of you might be facing this term or next during this session anyway. So we'll be talking about how I would teach myths and legend, and I will point out to you the principles that Mr. Okunuga has shared, that our prof has shared, that I am going to be using here, for example. So I'll start off this lesson. I would have printed out some stories to share to the class. I'd start off this lesson by reviewing my last class, and also it's a kind of like a starter. We're reading a story together. It's a narrative story. I don't want to waste your time today. I'm just going to explain a narrative. If it's a narrative, I'll print it out and give it to them, or display it on the board and ask the question. And you know, one of the starters in one of the ways of engaging that Prof discussed was give an answer and get them, give an answer and get them to give a question, or give a question for an answer. In this case, I'm giving an answer, I'm giving the story, and then I'm asking them, what kind of story is this? Identify this type of story. In this case, it's a narrative story. Identify it. Let us know. What I'm looking out for there is, we've walked through this narrative writing unit. I want to know, do they really remember what the features of a narrative writing unit is? This write a narrative essay on this or that. It is more of also letting them being able to identify when they see different stories as well. The question, just note them down, please, so that I can get them later on. Remember what he spoke about when you want to give a learning objective. When you want to give your learning objectives, it shouldn't be more than 3, maximum 4. There's no need for long 10 learning objectives. What are we learning about today? Today we're learning about the common features of a myth. And remember what he said, we don't want them to just stick to, you know, listing and all of that. If we say today we're learning about the common features of a myth, that's really basically they are able to list. They're able to, you know, but then again, at the end of the week, we will be able to do what? Write our own myth step by step. That's where we're heading to. So at the end of the day, at the end of it all, where we're heading to is that we're going to be able to create something. But first of all, we want to learn about the common features of a myth. We want to learn about the vocabulary of a myth. Subsequent classes will also learn about how to identify a myth, which involves them doing what? Applying critical thinking, you know, trying to understand, to not just, so sorry, let me back up a little bit. I know that for most English teachers, most times you just say, oh, we're doing myth. What is a myth? And then you just go ahead and give them, you just go ahead. Oh, I apologize, my slides on presentation mode. Sorry. Please, one moment. Okay. Share screen. Is that better now? Okay. So we will move on to talking about, we'll move on to discussing, like I was trying to explain, we're trying to get them to think critically, but also be able to create as well. Now, very quickly, I'll move on to describing what a myth is. What is a myth? You know, we'll define it, and then we will also talk about cross-curricular links. When we tell them a myth is a really old story that people used a long time ago to explain things they didn't understand. For example, they might tell a story about how the sun and the moon were created or why thunder and lightning happened. Now, the question that I'll be asking at this point is, have you heard of a myth? And I'm wanting them to think about that. I'm going to try to bring in cross-curricular here, from social studies or history, whichever one it may be, or even in Yoruba language, while we're teaching them, or in Igbo, we teach them about the creation of the world. Am I right here? We teach them about the creation of the world, the stories that different tribes, different cultures have about how the world was created. So for them to understand that this is also a myth, that's bringing in cross-curricular there as well. Do you understand? And then we move on to discussing what are the features of a myth. And it's very important to be able to get them to identify, to understand what the features of a myth are. This is because so that when they want to write their own, they know, they understand what exactly it is that they are trying to write. They understand what you are looking out for. I've realized that a lot of times when we tell children who write an essay, check your work, they're just there looking at that paper like this. They're not really reading what's going on there. They don't know what they're meant to be checking. They have no clue, no idea what they're meant to be checking. So you need to give them a guideline. When I'm marking your work at the end of the day, your finished work, what does a good one look like? That's basically what it is. It's called a waggle. What does a good one look like? You want them to understand what the features that you'll be looking out for are. You want them to understand what the features that you'll be looking out for are, and how to go about bringing those features together. Now, following that, immediately following that, we'll be moving towards what they know. Have you heard, like I've said, cross-curricular links, have you heard any local stories that you can identify as myths, maybe from your history or social studies class? An example, like I've said, an example is the story of creation by the Yoruba people. Can anyone here tell us that story? Does anybody here know that story? Anybody? Anybody who wants to share the story with us? Nobody? Okay. So for example, in the Yoruba tradition, we have who came down on a rope to earth, and nobody wants to help me. Yes, came down on a rope to earth and scattered some sand, right? The story is in depth. So you can use that as an example of a myth. And then you can then ask the question, let's identify the features in it that make it a myth. What features of that story make it a myth? There you are including critical thinking. You're including some critical thinking skills there. Now, like I said, we shared earlier, we'll listen to, you have to make ways of making your lesson more engaging. It's not just about reading, and that's all. Even though it's a creative writing class, you can introduce a podcast. In this case, I'll be using a podcast called African Folktales. It's readily available on anywhere you get your podcast from. It's called African Folktales. It has a lot of myths, legends, and those kind of stories in it. And I'll play the podcast at this point, right? This one, I have one. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it clearly. This one is a story about thunder and lightning, and why thunder and lightning don't live together, why they come one after the other, and things like that. You know, how do they run? I wonder if you can hear it. Please indicate if you can hear it.
No, we can't. It's quite low.
It's quite low. Okay, I'll include it. We'll include the name of the podcast in the. I don't want to delay us here today. I will include the name of the podcast in the email we'll send out to you. It's called African Folktales. English teachers, we can use this when we're introducing such a topic. You can also look for other podcasts. There are many, many, many podcasts out there that you can use, that you can play. When you play the podcast, then you can ask them to identify the features of that story that make it a myth. Let them have a full understanding of what a myth is. And then we now begin about what are the checklists for a myth. You have an interesting setting. Most myths might have a fantastical beast or a fantastical creature of some sorts. After that, you have a detailed description of the struggle that is involved. You introduce a problem and a detailed description of the struggle that is involved to solve the problem, and then a good ending as well. Now, I'll go further and explain this properly. When I talk about an interesting setting, an interesting place where this story takes place. When did it take place? Obviously, like we said, myths are usually stories that have taken place a long, long time ago. And they are usually stories that are used to explain phenomena that people then do not quite understand. Why does the zebra have stripes? Or not, and not and why does the bird have feathers? Why does it fly up in the sky? One popular myth that we find in West Africa is the story of Anansi. Anansi is like a spider. Why does Anansi, and you find that myth a lot in Africa, why does Anansi have 8 tiny legs? It's a myth. You can get podcasts, and when you get podcasts, you identify the interesting setting where it took place in a forest. It took place many centuries ago in a forest. Does it provide details that catch your interest and set the mood of the story? So when you are introducing teaching of myths in your classroom, you must be able to explain to the children how the details, what kind of details are being used to catch the interest of the reader. And then as you are explaining this, you are all writing together on the board. So you say when, they give you their when, they give you their where, they give you the details, and then you scaffold it. Remember, Prof also talked about scaffolding. You scaffold by writing on the board together as a group, bringing up sentences together, correct sentences, basically building the setting of the story. Now, I said that a good myth also consists of a fantastical beast or a fantastical creature of some sort. So you teach them, this is the character description here. As you are teaching them, you are writing on the board at the same time. What does this character look like? How does it behave? And you make sure that your story gives a detailed description of this character. Not just that you just tell them, you just read a story to them and tell them, go and write your own myth. How would they understand what they are meant to do? It's not possible. You have to take them on a journey, involve them. Ideally, another thing you can do is to share it out, group your students up and say, okay, you write a detailed description of a setting for where you come up with a title of a story as a class. You write this group write the setting, this group writes a different description of the characters. Maybe you can give one person the fantastic beast, you can or a creature in it, and then you give another person the hero, another group the heroes or the heroine, and ask everybody to come up with a short 5-6 paragraph describing this, so that when at the end of the day you can put them all together. Now, you also know that a myth would involve a detailed, how was the problem? So what was the struggle? How does the hero even go and find the beast? For example, in Theseus and the Minotaur, that's an example of a myth, a Greek myth, right? How does he go and find them? Where is the Minotaur found? Describe the Minotaur. You can actually play a video and describe the Minotaur. Once I finish with this, I'll show you a story, another website where you can get descriptions of all this, where you can get stories that you can display in your classroom as well while you're teaching a topic like this, for example. What does the beast do? Is there a conflict? Does the hero have any help in solving the problem? What special powers? Did he have maybe 3 friends that helped him solve the problem? Or what exactly happened? How was the problem solved? So that shows them how this this topic that we're working on, how it is developed for when they want to write it. And finally, a good ending. The good ending should discuss how the problem is solved, Who won the struggle? Does the hero receive a reward for winning, for solving that problem? Maybe the beast has been, disturbing the whole town and he solved the problem. Or maybe in the case of how the Yoruba myth of how the earth was created, who is the person that came down? How is he described? Do you understand? And what was at the end of it, what was his reward for creating the earth? What happened after he created the earth? That shows you what this whole story is about. Now, sorry, stop my share. Okay, I'm going to also now share my screen again. Like I said, I want to share a website with you. I want to show you how you can assess. I want to show you how you can assess the. I'm sorry, my screen. I want to show you how you can assess. Okay, here is a website, like I said, I will share with you. This is called Teaching Ideas. And I downloaded this free just to demonstrate to you. As a teacher, you know that we must have a whole toolbox of things. You don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. You can get different things as well. So, while you are teaching this topic on myths and legends, one thing you also have to do is to show them the different kinds of character. Don't just assume that children know. Don't assume. If it's a dragon they want to use, what kinds of words would they use to describe the dragon, for example? If it's a monster, an ogre, if it's a wizard, a witch, villains, what kind of words would they use to describe them, the characters, right? Can you think of any other character that you would also use in a myth or in a myth while you're writing a myth? And what about the settings? Where are the settings that that myths may be found in? A myth could be set in a cave, like Theseus and the Minotaur. It could be in a mountain, a lake, a forest, in different kinds of places, right? Like I said, the name of this website is Teaching Ideas. So you can feel free to Google it and look through it as well. Now, this is a very important part as well while you're teaching. And also cross-curricular, in this part of the world, we tend to teach grammar separate from writing. And we never show the children why that past tense they're learning, why that adjective, why those things are extremely important. Where are they used? Where are they used? It's different for them to be able to identify an adjective. But why is it important? Why are we learning this is also important. So this is a way that you can use to teach why those things are important. The story language, if you're talking about a narrative essay, what kind of parts of speech, for example, do you expect to see in a story, in a narrative essay? In a descriptive essay, what kinds of parts of speech do you expect to see? Here in a myth, we say that they are usually written in the past tense because they occur when? Long time ago, and are used to describe something now. It's, I find that many teachers, especially in primary school, we assume a lot that these children know this. You need to break down things as little, as small as possible. Use the past tense, use the third person, give them examples, and then you explain to them that we need, in a myth, we expect to see a lot of similes and metaphors. If you are teaching similes and metaphors in year 4, year 5, and you are not teaching them how to use it in their writing, you are wrong. Direct speech, you are teaching what direct speech is. You are not teaching them how to use it and showing them how to use it in their writing. You are wrong. Also, vivid descriptions. When you read this vivid description, gaze longingly at the ocean. Her sealskin had been locked away by a wicked fisherman. You ask them, what parts of speech jump out at you here? Can somebody share what parts of speech jump out at them? Gaze longingly at the ocean. Yes? Anybody? Wicked fisherman. Is it adjectives? Are there adverbs there? Okay. Let me leave that quickly. And like I said, I don't want to keep us waiting too long. And so you can show them things like this when you want to teach a myth and myths, units in your class in primary school, you have to have all these things organized for them as well. This goes down to planning. And then you have examples of the stories. Like I said, you don't need to only use, you know, those from the Western world. Use ones from their curriculum currently as well. Now, the final thing I want to show you here is about assessments and them checking their work and basically building metacognition, getting them to think about what they are learning. So you've written, we have all written together as a class. We have demonstrated it on the board. So they have what a good one is supposed to look like. It's called a waggle. You write together on the board. So they give you ideas, you refine the ideas, you speak about your thinking, your thought process, how you are refining the ideas as you write on the board. You speak about it as well. As you speak about it, you write, and you have them copy it into their notebook so that they have a sample of what a good one should look like. And then they get to write their own. This is a checklist that you can paste in each child's notebook, or you can have them copy out so that when they are going through what they have written, they know, okay, have I ticked this part out? Have I ticked that part out? You're building their metacognitive skills. They are helping them think about what it is that they are learning. You're helping them think about what it is that they are learning. So, I hope I've been able to explain this properly. So you have things including like, I have included mythological characters. I have included a setting from the past that matches the atmosphere of my story. I have an ending that explains what happens to the character. I have a text that is written in the past tense or in the third person. You share things like this with them as well. Please, I didn't even ask if everybody could see what I was sharing. Please, can everybody see what I'm sharing? Hello? Can anybody hear me?
No, I can't see it now.
No, we can't see. We can't
We
see.
can't see anything.
So some of the time I was talking, nobody, I
We're
apologize.
seeing you. We're seeing you.
We're seeing me.
We're only seeing you.
I apologize. So I'm so sorry, please. I apologize. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes,
Can you see it now?
it's coming on. Yes.
Okay. So this is the myths checklist that I was talking about. I apologize. This is the website. Let me just scroll to the top again. It's called Teaching Ideas. And this is what I was talking about. When you talk about characters, you give them things like this that show the words, that the vocabulary, the kind of vocabulary that you expect in a myth, the kind of vocabulary that you expect in a myth. So if they're talking about dragons, you expect that a dragon should live in a cave. You expect that a dragon is fearsome, is fire-breathing, frightful. These are words that they can use. If you're talking about an ogre or a monster in your myth, if you have such, these are the words you can use: venomous, toothless, and an ogre will be toothless, terrifying, repulsive, mammoth. You know, if you're talking about the settings, if you're talking about the settings, where can the myth be set? In a forest, in a lake? So these are things that you can display in your classroom. You can share while you are teaching the topic as well. You talk about the language, you tell them, if you are writing Hercules hurries to the temple, it's wrong because you're supposed to write a myth in a past tense. In the past tense, rather, it's something that was taught, a story that was told a long time ago, right? You're talking about vivid descriptions, and I was asking, gaze longingly. No one answered me. When I said gaze longingly at the ocean, her skin had been locked away by a wicked fisherman, and I was asking, what's it called? What parts of speech are being used in this vivid description? For example, you take your time to describe that as well. You don't teach in isolation, especially in primary school. You teach and you make sure that whatever you're teaching in grammar is being implemented in their writing as well. It's being implemented in their writing as well. And like I was explaining to you about giving them a checklist. When you tell them check your work, they don't know what they're checking for. If you don't provide them a guideline or what they're supposed to check for, you don't know what they're checking for. My myth is about this. It explains this. I have included mythological characters, right? I have included different types of sentences direct speech, exclamation. I have included, I've checked my spelling, I've checked my punctuation as well. These are things that you can easily share as well. I'm going to share one more website with you. One moment, please. I hope I remember to share my screen again now. Okay, can you see my screen, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, this is another website where you can get a variety of myths from and legends or different kinds of stories that you can read out to in the class. So you can, like I said earlier on, you can print something like this out. You can go through it. They can, look through it. They can highlight where the different parts of speech that you want to find in a myth have been used. You can highlight characters, how they've been described, and all of that. This story explains why the spider has 18 legs. That's what this story is about. If you can take down the name of the website. This is it here. So that you can also use that as part of your tools for teaching in creative writing. They also have other stories, not just African ones, such as Theseus and the Minotaur that I was describing to you, the story of Theseus and the Minotaur. They have it in the slides as well. These are things that you can share, not just that you tell them to write their own myth, but you don't give them a guide as to how to do that. At this time, I'll just stop. Are there any questions for me at this point? No questions for me? Somebody said past tense. Okay, you were answering my question. Any questions for me at this point? Okay. All right. I think that that was very quick, I don't know, a very quick description of how you would teach a creative writing class and get the children involved in primary school. Someone asked me earlier, is there a demonstration for nursery? I apologize, we can't take that because of time limits. Any questions for Mr. Okunuga or myself? We're happy to take them now. If you'd like to unmute yourself. Can feedback on written essay be written in students' notes? Yes, feedback. I'm sorry, I forgot to. Feedback for written essay must be written in students' notes. And the same structure that Mr. Okunuga shared is what we use. So when you want to, I find that most times people will just score 7/10. And that's all. The child does not know what they did right, does not know what they did wrong, does not know where they are going next. So simple. A simple sentence of you have used your punctuation marks correctly. I have seen you've used adjectives correctly. You've described properly. Then you tell them what they didn't do right. Maybe they didn't describe their setting properly. Maybe they didn't use vivid description. You let them know as well. And then you tell them what you expect from them going forward. You also can explain to them that you can also write in your notes in your written feedback about your their vocabulary, the use of their vocabulary. They've used powerful, strong adjectives. They've used good connectives, or conjunctions. They've used good openers. You note it down there. So basically, they've used a strong hook at the beginning of their essay. You note it down as well. You have to give, in fact, I find that good, powerful, strong feedback for writing in an essay is usually about maybe 4, 5, 6 sentences. And there should be room for the children to also respond to your feedback in the notebook as well. I hope I've answered your question. Titilayo Alade, have I answered your question? Any other questions? Any questions for Mr. Okunuga? None? Okay, at this point, if there are no questions at this point, we don't want to keep you long. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, please.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah. Please, can we have the recorded version of this section?
Yes, we will email. There's a form. Can the form be dropped here so that we make sure that we get feedback and we get email addresses?
Okay. Thank you.
Dabayami, can the form please, the link to the form, it was dropped above earlier on. The link to the feedback form was dropped on those in the chat group earlier on. Let me look for it. Any other questions before we round up? Okay, it has been dropped. The link to the form has been dropped again. Please fill it in. While you fill it in, we'll be able to send you a link. Thank you so much for taking your time out on Saturday to join us. I hope that you got some strategies that you can immediately implement in your classroom. Mr. Okunuga, I don't know if you have anything else to add at this time.
Yeah, I want to say thank you so much. I think everybody should remember the warm-up exercise we talked about earlier. So walk into your class, get your warm-up exercises, get your feedback, and we are good to go. Thank you so much, Mrs. Tommy. It was really a fantastic session. I think I learned more on English than I've ever learned before. Thank you so much. So thank you so much.
Very much, everybody.
We're all good to go now. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Please not only fill feedback forms to get the recording, only feedback forms that have been filled will get the recording, because that's where your email address can be left, can be dropped for us. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.